Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast where we talk about movies that audiences and critics do not agree on. With me, as always, is my co-host, Keith.
Hello!
And joining us for the first time on the podcast, the very charming Melanie Waldman.
Oh, hey. What's up, guys?
Hey, Mel. Really happy to have you on the pod for the first of what's hopefully many times.
Yes.
So
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely excited
Yeah,
to
thank
have
you.
Thank you for coming on and spending this morning with us for this recording session. So today we are going to be talking about the 1999 drama Cruel Intentions, starring Ryan Philippa. Is that correct? Is that how you pronounce that?
Philippi.
Philippi. Sorry, my apologies.
Philippa.
And Philippi and Sarah Michelle Gellar. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score with critics and a positive score with audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. This movie has 54% approval from the critics, 81% approval from the audiences. So 27% difference there. And the critics' consensus on this movie: this darkly comic drama and its attractive young cast are easy on the eyes, but uneven performances and an uninspired script conspire to foil Cruel Intentions.
Woof.
Yeah, that's the initial critic reaction, a bit mixed to negative there. So, what do you guys think? Is this like a kind of divide you'd expect of this movie? And what was your initial thoughts watching this movie? If it was the first time, or maybe you had seen it before. Let's start with Mel.
Yeah, I did rewatch it before I came on today. And I was thinking about that first experience of ever witnessing it. I think, you know how on VH1 they always had I love the 90s. I'm pretty sure that there was a clip of the hottest 90s movies ever, and it made the list. And I saw the clip that they showed was Selma Blair making out with Buffy, and they're on the lawn in Central Park. Who wouldn't want a Central Park makeout session? But I was like, all right, this is on the list. I'll keep it on my bucket list of films to watch. And I just remember watching it for the first time being every time a scene would end, just kind of checking in with myself, that just happened. They just, he just told that old lady to go, we're cursing on the show, right?
Yeah, you can curse.
By all means.
He told the old lady to go fuck herself or something in the retirement home, and then she's like, I won backgammon 3 times.
That sweet old lady had no idea.
Poor lady. You're just the whole time I found myself questioning what was happening IRL. But I think I genuinely loved it the first time just because all of those nostalgic players were in it in little ways. Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, big so that late 90s, early 2000s, teen cast, definitely came in strong. I think that was probably one of the biggest appeals for the younger audiences was just, getting this cast in. What about you, Keith? Was this your first time watching it, or were you familiar with this movie?
The stuff that I was familiar with, the stuff that that people parodied, at the ending, the kiss, I knew, but I didn't really know the finer details of this movie. I really didn't know the plot of this movie, basically. I just knew the ending. I've seen the ending probably more than I've seen. Yeah, this is my first time seeing the movie, but I've seen the ending many times.
Yeah, the ending I think is pretty popular, especially with that song, the Bittersweet Symphony. I think is
it's a bittersweet.
Yeah,
you think of this movie because of that song.
Right.
You automatically it's associated with this movie.
I'm not sure if it's the movie that made the song famous or the song made the movie famous, one way or the other, but they're definitely associated with each other. And I want to get into the ending later because I think the ending is a discussion in and of itself. I had never really seen the movie, but I always had a sense of what it was about. I mean, even the title, Cruel Intentions, mean teens, I guess, doing mean things.
That was the working title.
Yeah. But basically, But I kind of got a sense watching this for the first time that this seems to have, like, especially in this opening scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe, where like they're plotting their like dastardly plans. That like this seems to have some like either like Shakespearean or like kind of like classic literature sort of influence. And sure enough, I didn't know this is based on an 18th century French novel that translates in English the title as The Dangerous Liaisons, which does not really flow as well in English. But
Wow.
yeah, and I guess it does kind of have like these like old like I don't know Machiavellian like sort of machinations to it, where like these like teens are like planning these like sort of evil plans against like their peers. But I just have a problem with that opening scene because they're just so like super villainy when they're like I get this is like a stylistic movie and like the dialogue can be kind of heightened at times, but it was just too like silly to me. Like I wasn't really into it as like, ooh, this is like a sexy sort of thing. Like this to me was like it was like cartoony at times, and I think that has to do with the performances of especially with Sarah Michelle Gellar in this part. I don't know if she was right for this part. I don't know if that's a hot
I have
take.
to agree.
I'll okay. This movie walked so CW could run. Uh,
Okay, yeah, yeah. This is
I,
like WB,
I
CW.
this is I can totally understand this movie being a guilty pleasure. I think that's the like when you think of a guilty pleasure movie, this is definitely up there for a lot of people.
For sure.
Uh, this movie, I didn't hate it, but this movie's stupid. And this movie
It's
is stupid.
but it thinks it's smart. That's kind of what
Right.
rubs me the wrong way is that like it's kind of presenting itself as this like super smart like take on teen like dramas when it's just like really all style and very little substance to it really. So that kind of it's like very pretentious basically.
Yes.
But even like I blame the yeah, it takes itself way too seriously, so you end up laughing at its stupidity. But I
Mm-hmm.
kept going like, are that like this movie was praised for the performances, and I kept going, I guess they're good, but it's the script. They're all talking like 38-year-olds. This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
House of Cards, and they're all like I really I enjoy Sarah Michelle Gellar. I kind of miss her. Uh, and she her performance does put her in like that I remember this villain movie like character. I guess they're having fun with it. This movie only took like 6 weeks to shoot, so I guess you're just having fun with it. Uh,
Wow.
but
I had no
yeah, I
idea.
know, and but like everyone's good with the stuff that's given, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. But it's stupid. It's like they're given stupid stuff.
I kind of had a sense of maybe like a rushed shoot with some of these like little transition shots or scenes of like just Ryan Phillippe just walking through New York, just during some of these like contemplative scenes, or just him and Reese Witherspoon walking across a bridge. Like it all seemed just kind of rushed. Like I kind of get the sense that the actors don't even know the context of some of these little shots here and
Right.
there.
Right.
You know, it
The
just seemed like a little off at times
the
with
whole
that.
teen drama thing though, like you were so right, JJ, that even the movie poster is just their faces. It is Ryan Phillippe, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Selma Blair, just sitting there and looking like kind of sexy,
Yeah, like
come
posing.
hither, like so that Machiavellian thing you were talking about stylistically, like they keep trying to peep that through in the costumes, in the
Oh yeah,
style of the apartment that they live in, the blue walls, like it
the
was
whores, the whores dress in black, and the angel dresses in white, and they
yes. Oh,
never change
head to toe.
anything else. Head to
Right.
toe, he's wearing that frick. He might as well been filming The Matrix throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously, subtlety is not something this movie was shooting for,
Oh no.
but like that goes without saying, I suppose. But Sarah Michelle Gellar's, yeah, some of her outfits, like this is supposed to be like, a prep school, high school rich girl who gets her way and is supposed to be like high society, but she dresses like an old woman half the time. Like when she is in Central Park with Selma Blair during that like practice makeout session, she is dressed with like this huge black hat, and she's dressed like it's like some Victorian era, like day in the park or something. And again, that kind of was like a weird clash. Like this is a seductive, she devil, but she is dressing like it's, I don't know, like she just got out of the convent or something.
It's Selma Blair. Like I like Selma Blair, but like, is her character more or less stupid? Like, did she have a learning disability? Like, I'm
That's
just
what it
watching
seemed
this.
like. Yeah, to me it seemed that way. I mean, like, I actually was quite irritated by her character because she was constantly acting like a 6 year old. I just didn't understand that. Like, okay, she's naive, I get that, but she was like hamming it up too much. Where I'm like, this girl seems like she should be in like, she seems like she was like mentally handicapped at times. It was like, not to be
Yeah.
too mean, but it was just too much with that sort of like naive girl who has no idea she's being manipulated sort of thing. It was like just kind of irritating from an audience point of view.
I think
Yeah,
that
no,
was definitely a thing. She was just flailed about on that set too. If you didn't notice, they just keep throwing her off of shit onto the
Yeah,
floor.
right. Philippi
Like,
throws her off the
at
bed.
least he throws her off the bed. They're very like physically abusive with her. They just are jolting her around. And
Hmm.
I think where that comes from probably is going to be from the director to be like, no, I want her to be a little bit more irritating. How can we make her more? She has these little squeaks that she does, like just like you
Yeah,
just hear that on
that
repeat
got on
through
my
the whole
nerves.
thing. Yeah,
Hmm.
I remember weirdly, like without having to rewatch it. I just remember her making these squirrel noises. Just
Yeah, the kinds that like children make when they're giddy. Like, I agree, that probably is more like of like a director's choice to craft that character that way. Because I feel like Samuel Blair is usually a much better actress than that in like other things I've seen her in. So it was,
love her.
again, like everything has to be on like the extreme in this movie. So I guess they were thinking the same thing with making her character so naive that she was like a child, like stunted maturity level here. But it was just too much. It didn't
I,
have to be that with her character.
uh, I, I mean this comment as objectively as possible, but this feels like a well-produced student film, college student
Oh,
film.
you know
Like
what?
I
I
it
think
agree.
that
has that, it has the budget. It has like it made a lot of money, but it has a decent budget for, get cameras and a studio behind it. But the before, like, even like the idea of like, let me adapt dangerous liaisons with preppy kids, like it feels like that.
yeah, actually, I really like that point you made. Because now that you say that, I could totally. That's how I'll totally view this movie now. It's like if someone submitted. It's like if someone had decided to produce a script that was submitted by like for a student contest, and they
Yes.
picked this out and decided to like make a major studio movie with this student contest script. That is now like the vibe I'm getting from it.
Now, can you
Uh,
remind me who the director is of this? Because Mr. Director, I
uh
believe I was looking through the Rotten Tomatoes scores and reading some of the not so nice reviews, and somebody pointed out I believe this director also was the director behind Dumb and Dumber.
the writer behind
The
Dumb and Dumber.
writer. So I'm sorry, I was attacking the director. I was coming for them. But still, if you keep that in mind, I think it makes a little bit more sense as to like where that goofiness wants to come through. But
Hmm.
it just often falls so flat because it's not even on the same level of a script as Dumb and Dumber is.
Well, it's a
I
totally
will.
different genre. I mean, obviously this one is like um, trying to shoot for something like way more intellectual, and
Like, is it a dark comedy? Is it a dramedy? Is it just a drama? Like, where are we?
I will agree. I that probably definitely seeped into his writing and his directing. I still think he tried to make like this prestigious teen drama, but this was his first. His name is Roger. Let's put. I don't want to put him on blast here. Roger Cumble.
Sorry,
And this was
Roger.
his first. Yeah, sorry. I mean, hey, this it's in the lexicon. This movie is part of the
Yeah.
grand slate of 1999 movies, but unlike those, this happened to stay in 1999. But this was his first movie, and I think the reason I can't remember the studio, I think it was Columbia. The reason this got probably got the studio backing was because this was around the same time a lot of studios were delving into teen adaptations of like Shakespeare. Like, I think it started with Clueless, and then I think this is the same year as 10 Things I Hate About You,
Yes.
or around that time. I think it was just like, okay, let's pick up everything that we can. This is, it's amazing this was a big trend at the time, but yeah.
Well, it's going for a different tone, I guess, than some of those other
Oh, yeah.
adaptations. But yeah, definitely like a similar idea. Like, yeah, let's take this classic literature and update it for like modern teens, which is not a bad idea. It sounds appealing, but it's just been done so much more interestingly and just executed better with a movie like Clueless, for example. That's probably the best sort of like translation, from classic literature to like relevant teen, sort of comedy drama.
As if.
Your friends close and your enemies closer.
When I get through with Cecile, she'll be the premier tramp of the New York area.
And poor Court's new little princess will be damaged goods.
Why go through Cecile? Why not just attack Court?
Because if there's an attack made on Court, it could be traced back to me. And I can't allow that to happen. Everybody loves me. And I intend to keep it that way.
I see your point. Why should I care?
Because I need you to seduce our young Cecile. She's quite cute, you know? Young, supple breasts, a tight, firm ass, uncharted booty. Be her Captain Picard, Valmont. Boldly go where no man has gone before.
As much as I'm not crazy about Sarah Michelle Gellar, I did really like Reese Witherspoon in this movie. I thought she was probably like my favorite performance, maybe because she's probably the least heightened character. She's maybe the most relatable character. And I like how, she's like standing up for herself. And Reese Witherspoon is always charming in everything she's in. And
She's
then
gonna be a
100%.
star. She's gonna be a star of that one. I know. I was pleasantly surprised because Sarah Michelle Gellar was always like the one that you hear about, and Reese Witherspoon. Yeah, I thought she was good. Uh, can I ask? Did we ever care about Ryan? Or what was it, Sebastian? Did we ever care about his
this
character?
that's the problem I have. We're supposed to right towards the end, but then they establish him in the beginning as this like total like sociopath. So like I had a hard time. Like he kind of flipped quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like for like the first half of the movie, he's like on this mission and he's like just as crazy as his sister, and then all of a sudden it's like he's falling in love with Reese Witherspoon, and now he's like a human, just but like very quickly. There's no transition into that. So it's like,
Right.
oh, okay, when did this
There's
happen?
a lot of tears. There's a lot of emotion. And IRL, they were married. So there's
Yes,
a lot
they
of
were dating
feeling
during
behind
this
that.
time.
They were dating during this time, later married, now separated. So
I did think
Yeah.
the chemistry came across
Yeah,
even in the
right,
heightened
right.
like Sebastian came off as like kind of like I'm like, I get it, it's heightened, everyone like he's holding hands right outside the mall. It's like, what's her problem? Like, I guess she needs therapy. You want to
Oh
go
my
have
God.
sex?
I saw
And
that
I'm like,
moment
okay, this is the kind of movie.
too.
This is the kind of movie it's gonna be. This is Riverdale. This is a CW. Uh,
Yeah.
but I wanted to, as I'm watching this movie, I'm going, okay. I've learned from other movies that not every main character has to be likable to be a good movie.
Fair.
And he does go through an arc, I guess. Like he does, as you said, it's flip of the switch. He's just like, oh, what I've been doing is wrong. And but when towards the end, I'm just like, oh, I don't care what happens to him. I like,
Right.
I feel bad, but I guess it was just it was like a paper character or like a 2D character that just like, oh yeah,
Yes.
by the way, I love you.
Well, he kind of
would love.
is, like throughout the movie, even though he's falling for Reese Witherspoon, he's still like, having sex with Selma Blair, right? That's like implied.
I don't think they do the deed. I think it's like very much, do they or don't they?
I mean, like I was watching this with Eric, and like I didn't really pick up on that at first that they had sex. Like, I guess the scene where he pushes her off the bed is like a post sex sort of scene.
Oh yeah, she
I
said she likes it on
I-
top this time, and
I
I'm
thought
like, okay,
I thought
they're
you
probably.
meant Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's what I
Oh,
was like. Wait, but yeah,
oh,
you're right. Selma Blair, yes, they do the deed.
Right.
They
That's
definitely
what I'm
do.
saying. But I mean, so he's still having sex with Selma Blair, and then even like him and his sister are stepsister. I should emphasize. They're
Step.
still like being super gross, flirty with each other, or like doing all these sort of like teasings with each other. So like even though he's still falling for Reese Witherspoon, he's still like a crazy person that if Reese Witherspoon really like finds, I guess she does find out the true nature of what was going on. But I would
His
feel
cruel
like,
intentions.
yes, but I feel like that would run her like that would send her running for the hills, finding out like what his true behavior was this whole time, because it's like gross.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, he had the arc of like falling in love with Reese Witherspoon and realizing but I guess the bigger arc for him is like, oh, I don't want to fuck my sister anymore.
Quite
Oh,
an arc.
yeah.
And with Reese Witherspoon, what is the timeline of this movie? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think.
I think so. I think it's like a couple weeks.
I
If
was,
you told me it was a month, I would also believe that too.
Right,
like
right.
I was a little like, okay, so like Reese Witherspoon's turn also was just like, oh, he's like, she actually had like, oh, I'm careful of you. I got the note. You're a bad dude, and I'm like, okay, she's seeing through the manipulations even when they're in the pool and stuff. And then even like that, I think all it took was to go to the nursing home. It's just like, he's a good guy.
Oh, let's hold hands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
But they totally dropped the fact that she said she was seeing someone who was like backpacking in Europe, but like that
Yes.
that totally gets dropped. You
So
totally
lost.
it's not even like she feels guilty about it. Like you just
I
totally
thought she
even
was
forget
lying.
about it.
But he knew his
oh.
name, so I'm like, oh, it might have been in the article, but that's so weird that, yeah, he does get dropped like that.
But also, Cecile, Selma Blair's character, she is like supposed to be going out with a guy that dumped Sarah Michelle Gellar's character,
And that's why they're like
and
together.
That's why like Sarah Michelle Gellar wants revenge. But you don't even meet this guy. The guy who is like the catalyst for this plot. Like he doesn't even get a face. I think they mentioned his name once or twice, but then that whole thing is dropped. It's kind of like a MacGuffin, I guess. And then because then there's the whole thing with like the music teacher and so forth. So
And Christine Baranski. Let's not forget about the mother. Oh
Bunny.
God. Anything she touches, I think, is magic.
And she was only on
so
set for like 3 days. It's just like, I'm in,
And-
I'm out.
They made her an utter racist. Not just like a little bit of a racist. She is just like completely a racist. And Sarah Michelle Gellar's character is like dancing around it, but she's like, he's black.
Yeah, this
she
movie
is-
was very lazy with that. And also just like, that's why I'm like, you had a bunch of great movies come out in 1999. It's a pretty good year for film, and that transcend time, and that this movie stays in 1999.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes, absolutely. That and the soundtrack does that. It like seals it.
Well, maybe
We'll get to
maybe,
that. I have a lot to say.
I'm like waiting for it.
for this movie, like it makes sense that it would be stuck in its time because it was trying to be like a trendy movie. Again, it's doing something a few movies did before with the literature adaptation or attempt, and this again the soundtrack and the cast, like everything about it is like a time capsule in a way.
Right.
Maybe like not usually in a time capsule you want to put the best of what was there, and then this this is more of like maybe a snapshot maybe than a capsule.
Yeah,
photograph.
I think those like little clips of it are like, oh yeah, this movie. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, but
Yeah,
the thing
maybe
as a
not-
whole, not so much.
You know what really drove me crazy? You had that actor who's from Dawson's Creek who played like Sebastian's like gay friend. That
Oh
like
my
Oh
God.
my god.
And
Joshua Jackson.
right, and like
Yes,
that bleached
Blaine.
hair like drove me nuts. I wanted to just shave that hair off that guy's head because it looked terrible. And again, like of its time, I mean, I guess a lot of people did that at the time, and it was a huge mistake to do that.
They still do it. It's still a thing,
Why?
unfortunately. Why? Nobody knows, but we notice when it happens. Yeah, Joshua Jackson, and then the Gregster, who refers to himself in the third person. Oh, just like I wanted to turn it off every time he said the Gregster. It just really irked me.
Yeah, I guess they're just trying to drive in home that he's like pretending to be like a super straight macho jock, right? But again, everything has to be like at a 10 in this movie or higher. So like, you know, if they're going to drive in that point, they really want you to know. It's like, we know, we get it.
If we're on this level already.
But that soundtrack, I'm not even including the ending, which I actually think the Bittersweet Symphony, you know, it amplifies the scene. It makes you'll remember that. Like the whole, it felt like once again, it felt like a CW show where it's like when the characters are sad, ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, ba-bum, bum, you're getting that sad trauma. You're getting like music that's so
blind.
you're getting music of the time that just like that's supposed to tell you how you feel, whether they're in the park or about to have sex, and I'm just like, I'm in it, and then I'm like, this is so stupid. I love it. And then at one point, I'm just so tired of it. Like,
Yeah, I kind of like went through different phases throughout this movie where at first, like towards the beginning, I'm like, this is so dumb. But then it started to warm on me, and I like kind of had fun, you know, just embracing like how dumb it all was. But then I would get annoyed, you know, and it was kind of like a cycle like that. You know, this continuous loop of you know, like liking it, embracing it, then disliking it again.
a circle of stupid.
Basically, I think I went through that cycle maybe like 4 or 5 times.
I don't know. I guess I'm just scared.
Of what?
Duh, boys. Never even gone to first base with a guy.
Haven't you ever practiced on one of your girlfriends?
Ew, no. It's gross.
Well, it's not gross. How else do you think girls learn? Okay, face me. Now, close your eyes and wet your lips.
Are you for real?
You want to learn or not?
I guess.
See, that wasn't so scary.
It was nothing.
Okay, let's try it again. Only this time, I'm gonna stick my tongue in your mouth.
I'm looking at the soundtrack now, the official soundtrack. Just some of the things, Colorblind, and all these other like really staple 90s songs are just embedded in me. So that like Bittersweet Symphony comes on the radio, and I'm like, oh, that end scene with the convertible. Yeah, okay. I'm brought back to this movie. And then that's about it. Like, you're very right. It has its moments and then it doesn't. And you're like, why am I watching this?
Yeah, people don't really go back to it really as much. Yeah, I guess at the time it made a splash, right? It was very famous at the time. Mm-hmm. It was referenced a bunch of times. In fact, you know, I've seen Not Another Teen Movie a few times before having seen this movie. And so again, like those scenes have been referenced, you know, like or even like just like shot for shot parodied in that movie, for example. So it's like, oh, okay, like that's what this is from, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in a long time, so I'm spacing, but I'm gonna have to watch that back now because I want to see.
Looking at the audience score, which is in a B territory, like it, people love. I mean, people like going back to it as like even the people that go like, I know, it is a guilty pleasure. It warms you, full of nostalgia.
Cult classic.
Cult classic.
I was gonna say those two, like all those things, like, you know, like could be separate reasons or combined reasons. You know, I guess if you were in high school at the time and everyone was watching this and talking about it, this could be something where, you know, it makes you fond of those times, you know, and then maybe like you're gonna go easy on it, even though like you know, an 80-something% is like still really high. Right, that was the score. Yeah, 81%. I mean, that's
pretty high.
That's really high for something like this. And then Yeah, like nostalgic, guilty pleasure. I totally get that. If you really are a fan of these actors, you're gonna enjoy them hamming it up on the screen like this. And yeah, like for example, if you're a Buffy fan, then
Right.
you're going to like really enjoy Sarah Michelle Gellar being super evil as opposed to being a slayer of evil.
This must have been a fun. I mean, we've all acted before. This must have been a fun
Mhm.
movie to like. This is summer camp. You're 6 weeks at
It
summer
seems
camp,
like it. Yeah,
Seems like
and
it definitely seems like it.
it seems like
like
the kind of. Sorry, what were you saying?
you're given like 6 weeks to make a movie, and it's the best student film. Like, hey, this is a pretty fun script. You get your heightened dialogue. You're a 16-year-old talking like a 40-year-old.
I can
Uh,
imagine actors, yeah, especially young actors, having fun playing these very heightened parts where because it's not the kind of like dialogue they normally get,
Or
in other projects.
themes or like anything that they do. I mean, sure, teen sex is like a thing in this movie, but a lot of the subject matter aged them a whole bunch. I
it's
mean,
erotic. It's erotic
it's erotic.
teen drama. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantasy elements too, in a way. Really, I
Jesus.
yeah,
Lots of
yeah,
Jesus.
that cross with the cocaine in it. I got a kick out of that prop. That had to have been specially made for this movie. There's no way that exists anywhere in real life.
I don't know. I thought about that. Maybe not that I need one for any of my own personal use, but I kind of like would not look for that, but I feel like it is a thing. I don't know.
No,
Well,
Could be.
that did make me laugh. Like, that classic, movie technique. It's just like, well, I always keep what I need close to my heart, like on me at all times. And then, yeah, it's just a bump key and all that.
My
What
secret is Jesus.
yeah, what made me what makes me laugh when you see some of these like props like that? I always like to think, was this something someone found somewhere and were like, we got to use this in the movie, or is it something that they like asked someone to specifically make, and like the person getting this order is like, wait, what? You want me to make a cross that opens up with a cocaine spoon inside? Like, either way is pretty ridiculous.
For a movie like this, I would say the former. I would say like, oh, like the guy just happened to have like, we gotta put this in the movie.
This thing is so cool. Let's
This is
use
perfect
it.
for her
This
character.
is an antique. Like, it could be. I would believe it.
Or unless they took an
An
actual
anti-
cross. They took an
Grandma used
actual
to have.
unless they took an actual cross and then like modified it, which I'm not like super religious, but you're kind of pushing it if you're taking an actual cross and turning it into like a stowaway for cocaine. Be careful.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, really.
Just the worst.
Maybe we can get into the ending
I think
of the
so.
movie now, because it is like the most iconic part.
I have notes.
Okay.
It's,
Oh,
it's that
share.
oh. Just
Oh.
a moment that struck me is just this first it's the strings do. By the time it gets to the lyrics, the principal or the headmaster finds her cross, and the words go, no, I can't change. I can't change. And literally he's shaking his head no to the words. No,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
The amount of times that and this goes where I actually started laughing out loud. The amount of times that people shake, like extras shake their heads, like she looks out into like the sea of adults that are dressed up like high school kids, and they do close-ups of these kids, and you just see this one goofy looking guy just go like shake his head like he's disappointed. Made me That was the surprise laugh of the night when I watched this movie.
I'm
What
so
a great day to be
I'm
an
so
extra on a
glad.
set.
I'm so glad you guys like mentioned the head shaking, because that is the first thing that stood out to me. Because the thing is, like, this is, I guess, like, there's no more dialogue at that point in the movie, right? Because it's like, again, it's going for the
Done.
stylized sort of like music video moment where like her whole world is crashing down on her. But because no one can be speaking during the style they're going for, the only thing they can convey really for the judgment is like the head shaking. That's all they can do, really. Like, you get some like glares and stuff like that, but basically that's that's all you can really do to convey. People are like, shunning her now.
Disapproval.
Just
All
like
over their faces.
so silly.
all there.
I think some people be like having the thumbs, be giving her the thumbs up. It's just like rock on.
Just for some variety, right? Like, no,
Right on.
everybody
But
disapproved.
everyone, even from
Everybody.
her parents to the headmaster, everyone is just shaking their heads.
I'm trying to think like what else besides the cross. I guess the journal is supposed to have everything in it, and I am also assuming the bet is in that journal. And I found this bet to be like so ridiculous. Like if she wins, she gets a car. If he wins, he gets to do anal with her. That was the implication.
I believe that's true.
That is
believe
what
you're right.
ultimately sells him on this bet. Like, 'cause she's
Yep.
like, oh, you can like, get with me. And he's like, I don't know. She's like, you can put it anywhere. And he's like,
Anywhere.
oh yeah. I'm like, what?
You're on.
That's what his,
Oh yeah, like he turns the camera.
that is like the thing that sells him on this bet is like anal. I don't know. That was insane to me. But going back to the ending scene, if that is in the journal and people are reading that, and again, all the weird sort of like other sexual things they were doing with each other, yeah, I would probably be shaking my head too. I don't know, maybe throwing up. I probably would maybe have a stronger reaction than like light head shaking.
I know.
Just silent head shaking.
Now, if Reese Witherspoon was smart, because I don't know where she's driving off to. She still has school that her father like.
School's not over
Like
yet.
I get it. No, like I get it.
They
It
just
mirrors
got
the
there.
it mirrors the beginning. But like she's driving. If I were her, if this movie continued on for like 10 more minutes, she's driving off to like a publishing company because I feel like this book would have been like
The book is called Cruel Intentions. I thought that was really crazy. She titles the book. She titles his journal the name of the movie. Which, why even give the journal a title? Just say, like, this is his journal. Why give it a title?
Fun fact about the title. And I once again, this movie's so stupid that I had to like laugh when I saw this. The movie was originally called Cruel Inventions, but test audiences thought that made it sound like a science fiction film.
Cruel Inventions.
Cruel Inventions.
You invent a machine that just like tricks you.
Like you're
into
just waiting the
humiliating
whole
yourself.
time for that invention. Like,
but
what is
definitely
it?
Roger was just like, no, this is like, it's like, can you just change a little bit of can you change some letters? Okay, Cruel Inventions, Cruel Investments, Cruel,
Cruel Intentions is a good title, I would say.
That's it.
yeah.
But in Cruel Inventions, that makes me think of like a guy who is just inventing like pranks or something, like all these machines that just serve to like humiliate you or something. Like, oh man, these are such cruel inventions.
Yes. Now, I do have a question about this, and I want to know what you each think. I want to backtrack to Sebastian's death, which is this big dramatic scene in Central Park, and there's a lot of very strange elements. So he is hit by a taxi, very fitting in New York City, goes over the roof, is in the street, and he's still talking to Reese's character. They're talking to each other before he
Full on
passes away.
sentences, like, too.
Like really having a full conversation. So we don't actually see his death. So my question to both of you, do you think that he left the car to Reese, or did she just like kind of not like
Take it?
Take it. Yeah. Like, did he give it to her? Did he have time to sign a will or like what do you think?
That's a good point, which I hadn't considered. Because
Oh,
why
it's been
would
driving
he?
me nuts.
I doubt that he would have had like a will written out ahead of time. That's like, I leave my car to Reese Witherspoon.
My power of attorney is this.
Yeah, like that's interesting. Also, I was when it's revealed he died. It doesn't seem like he's about to die in that last shot of him speaking. I guess maybe he had like internal bleeding.
At
or
least in a
something.
wheelchair. He'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. That's what I thought. Like,
I mean, I get you can get seriously hurt by being run over by a taxi, which
Internal bleeding, like
Yeah.
something.
didn't seem to be going that fast either. I don't know. Like, I get it, like for the narrative purposes, dramatic purposes, but yeah, it was just done in such a silly way It was like
They
such a
had the
spectacle.
doves flying too. Like it was a full thing. Like the birds are going crazy. It's the frickin' pigeons.
Yeah, was it pigeons or doves? This poor
Doesn't matter.
this poor boy, just as soon as he becomes good, is struck down and has no other chance for redemption.
My version of there must be a deleted scene out there of just like Sebastian has died. He said he would leave me his car. Did he? Like yes.
Really?
Too
Like
late,
he said he would.
biatch.
He said he would leave. Well, that makes sense. He did love you. Those were his last words.
I mean, to be fair, like it is like a cool shot, and I did kind of like that, like just the
Oh,
shot
yeah,
of
yeah.
it. But then when you think about it, it doesn't really add up logically, because it almost seems like this whole movie was built towards this ending. Like I know this is based off a book, but it almost seems like this guy the director had like this scene in mind for something. Like, oh, this scene where this cruel girl, has her whole world fall apart around her and everyone's judging her, and he kind of maybe like built everything just towards that like final moment.
These dangerous liaisons.
What that title actually reminds me of? Dangerous Liaisons. Especially with like the semi-incestuous sort of themes. It reminds me of Arrested Development, like Les Cousins Dangereux or whatever that was. Like, I watched that movie.
I had
kind
to
of-
rewind the movie twice, just because I feel like I watched it and then I said, "Wait, what?" One was the
Yes.
One was the first time Sebastian and Sarah Michelle Gellar talk and kind of like plan out. I'm like, wait a minute, what is the catalyst for this? Like wait a minute, what is the revenge? And I'm like, I feel like I watched that whole scene and I had to go back and rewatch it. I'm like, what is going on? And then the build up to the ending, I'm like, whoa, like why they're just walking around Central Park? I feel like I fell asleep watching this movie, and then because I was like, why is Sean Patrick Thomas angry? Or he's just like was he following Brian
Oh,
Phillippe? I'm like, no,
the
this is
music
good
teacher.
timing. This is good
Yeah.
timing. And all of a sudden, this kid who doesn't look like he could fight is able to put up a fight.
Yeah.
Like with the that shitty fight choreography of like
It was kind of like, I'll punch you. Now it's your turn to punch me. Like they were very
Yep.
like civil during that, that fight.
I want to say I after talking to people that do watch Riverdale, and it's like I feel like I'm phrasing it in a way like people who have like a disease. Like I after spending my time with people who watch Riverdale, I it's they people know that it's stupid. And having seen a few
Right.
episodes myself, I'm watching and going like, I don't know if it's leaning, I don't know if they're aware of this stupidity, and that's the problem for me. It's like, are they leaning into it, or are these people just having fun being stupid? But the audience, they know it's like I'm having fun. It's fun, and that like it is like the pure version of a guilty pleasure.
It kind of
And
plays
it's
like
like
a
I
soap
get it.
opera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I can get why people can like it. Uh, I'm trying to think. It
What was the
1990
other scene? You said there were two scenes when you had to.
Oh,
Do you remember what the other one was?
that opening scene with where you first meet Sarah Michelle Gellar and all that, and then the build up to the fight. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
understand why.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
get
like I
that.
kind of missed why Sean Patrick Thomas was angry, and I'm like, wait a minute, was he following him or?
I think basically what happens is, and you're right, it's like kind of like unclear. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar calls him to come over. She says that like Sebastian hit her,
Yes.
and
Right.
they establish that like these two have like I guess like a little bit of a sexual relationship. Although I don't know if anymore because you see him having slept with Cecile at that point. I don't know.
He
It was
was
weird.
stupid
Yeah.
too. He was so like easily, but there are people that are easily
That's what
manipulated
this
in
whole
this
movie is about. It's just it should be
They're
called The Great
cruel.
Manipulators.
Yeah.
The cruel manipulators.
Dangerous manipulators.
Dangerous manipulators.
Dangerous manipulators with dangerous liaisons. They yeah, like I didn't really understand why the music teacher would sleep with Catherine, because like she's clearly crazy. Like I guess maybe she's just the
She
seductress.
hot. She
maybe like
has.
maybe a similar thing happens in the book, and then yeah, keep with with the thing with like being confused, having felt like did I miss something. That's why I was mentioning before about like these MacGuffins of these boyfriends you never see come on screen because
Yeah.
that those establish like the plot, but then it never comes up again. So there were times where I'm like, wait
Right.
a minute, like why does she want revenge against the Cecile character? Why does she even or even like why is Sebastian helping Sarah Michelle Gellar try to achieve her goals? Because like it's a bet. If anything, he should be like trying to hinder her, but then he's helping her. And there were like all these
No,
times where I'm like,
Cecile.
their motivations were like confusing at times, or not just well established.
Would
Yeah.
these two kids be as popular in school as the movie gives it credit for?
I don't think so.
I feel like they would be like those two siblings that you think might have sex with each other in
People
school.
probably would
Because
assume that.
Sebastian acts like he's the coolest kid in school. All the girls want him, and I'm just like, do people like? And granted, Ryan Phillippe's a good-looking guy, no doubt. Like, but it's just like,
Right.
oh, he is a sociopath on a in a trench coat.
They established that like he's a guy who has like slept with like almost every girl in the class, and I'm like, how? He's such a creep. Like,
And the teacher too, probably. Like it just
in, in that
Yep.
scene, where it's like, oh, it looks like she needs therapy, and then he picks up that girl right away. I'm like, he is like so creepy, like, and she is like so into him. This like random girl who like just met him. I didn't really buy it, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's the actor. Maybe they could have gotten someone. I don't know if Ryan
no,
Phillippe in
that's
this
the
part.
directing on that. Like
I,
that's purely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I got a
you,
sense that this is a
I
guy who like charms his way through life, and I don't know if I found the performance to be charming at all.
well, he
I think
talks
that
like this.
yeah.
Why am I like? Why is
He
my
talks
life
through
so
his
rich?
lips
I
through
see
the
her
whole
as a con.
thing.
I see her as
Yeah,
a
he
conquest.
Val, you're right. He's like
He
constantly
does
like,
this lip acting thing where his pursed lips are just speaking, and the rest of his face does nothing. And
yeah,
that's his entire character. And I think that that's where that loss in translation
She was
comes.
overcharging.
yep.
I had to mess with her. She was overcharged. It's
I
almost a
had
British
to
accent.
do
It's an
it.
American British
Yes,
high-end act. It's posh American.
transatlantic.
It's posh American. I live on Madison Ave. I live near Central Park. I
That could
ride
be
my unicycle.
that could be
I
a
don't.
fault. That could be a fault with like Americans assuming that if you want to sound pretentious, you have to sound like English, maybe, or like some sort of like fake sounding English. It's like,
My favorite, yeah, is with Bunny. She does that a lot. And she's like, when I found you, you were on the streets. And Ronald says, I live at 59th and Park. Like, he's that one character that's a little bit rooted in reality
Yeah.
who is just questioning what's happening around him. But Bunny just says, whatever.
yeah. She, I mean, I like that actress, but she usually plays these like hoity-toity sort of
Oh
like
yeah. Even in
Park
the
Avenue.
Grinch.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Even as a who, she's
Love.
like very pretentious.
this
Um,
movie needed like Bill Murray as like one of the like just as like the father, just being self-aware of like the movie
mhm.
that he's in and just being like
Yeah, I would
my
have
crazy
loved
kids.
one more self-aware character other than Ronald would have made it like just so full. But you're right. It's one of these movies that you have to keep coming back to because you're like, wait, how the heck did she end up in that car? Like, how did Sarah Michelle Gellar not get the car? What is happening here? And I
You
thought about that the whole time this new watch I did. I couldn't stop thinking about it.
if anything, the fact that the two grounded characters, Reese Witherspoon and the music teacher, the fact that they do eventually fall into like the trap set for them, then you lose whatever little groundedness that you had. Because then
Yeah.
like then you have the music teacher being hidden in like the foot of the bed in that
The
one
Murphy
shot.
bed.
Yeah,
Just in the Murphy drawer. He's down there. That's
yeah.
where he's at.
And then which, by the way, why would she want to hide him from Sebastian? They're pretty open with each other about their sexual lives.
I took that as him hiding, but like, oh, it's
Oh.
like someone's about to come in, and it's weird that it's your brother. Like, someone also should have been self-aware. It's like this is so weird. You guys are having sex with each other, right? Like
He
someone,
seems to be suspicious of them when they're like, oh, like here's like Cecile's like letters, or we have your
yes,
letters from Cecile, and they're being like super weird around him, and he is suspicious
Yes.
of them.
He's
But
like,
then,
what's
he-
going on?
yeah,
like
because they're
they
acting
show
like
up at the
weirdos.
elevator in a shot that I like. I'm like, all right, it's a shot for the like it's appropriate for the movie of like him getting taking the elevator down and they're right there. I kind of like
Now,
that, but the just for its stupid sake.
That's the
do
thing.
either of you watch movies though with the captions on? Because I can't watch them without captions. That's just how I TV everything. She specifically in that scene shushes him, says shush, be quiet, and then hides him. So that's like I don't know if it's him or if it's her. So that's the nice thing about that. And also, if you don't watch film or TV without audio describers, highly suggest it just to try it out, because there's a lot of things in the plot that is listed in like the details in movies and stuff. So try that out. Netflix does a really good job of that. So
Okay.
I just wanted to plug that.
Indirect,
I'll try that.
indirect chatter, or like in that background.
He drops the black coat and falls to the ground. The doves fly.
Oh, they have like the stage directions sometimes.
Yes.
Interesting.
Depending on what Rebecca, I watched with the captions on. That was a really good one because there's a lot happening in that. So
Okay.
just try it.
Fair
If
enough.
this movie's ever on Netflix, Netflix does do a good job for like how for deaf people who could watch movies and TV
Or low vision, yeah.
Yeah. And having just like tried that out just to see what it was like, I can imagine like man shakes his head disapprovingly, headmaster shakes his head disapprovingly, the parent,
Oh my
everyone
God.
shakes their head disapprovingly.
I need to watch that now if that ever does. Actually, now I'm going to go back and see if it's on there. I'll keep you posted.
It's not on Netflix, but it's
No,
on,
if it's on
HBO Max.
it's
That's
HBO
how
Max
I,
right now.
and
That's how I
Hulu,
watched
think.
it. Something like that. I'm going to try and see what the audio describers say now.
Yeah.
Man
absolutely.
shakes his
Disapproving
head just-
shakes.
Oh, it's so funny. We keep bringing up like CW, and what Eric showed me after we watched this movie together was the first couple episodes of Gossip Girl, and I could see Gossip Girl maybe taking a few notes from this movie, but I actually was really enjoying it. And I feel like it might be my new show that I start like binging on from start to finish.
Oh, wow.
Who would have thought?
I've always wanted to watch that. So,
Is
JJ,
it-
I think you've inspired me.
I was
Thanks.
really enjoying it.
I
So
might
I
have
was like,
to.
oh my gosh, this is actually good. And if anything, it felt almost like they were improving upon a lot of aspects of this movie, because they do have a character. I think his name is Chuck in the show, who's kind of like the Sebastian type, but he's like way more believable, because he, instead of being this like overly pretentious type, he's like more of like a detached sort of like stoner with no regard to like hurting other people's feelings. And I was kind of buying that more. I feel like if they characterize the Sebastian character as maybe more detached as opposed to like overly narcissistic and overly like intellectual, I would have probably been more invested in his arc, or at least would have believed it more.
Right. I'll have to watch it because I've always heard Gossip Girl is great. What?
silly, but
tell me
it's-
what streaming service are we on?
It's on Netflix. It's all on
Oh.
Netflix. So
So you're saying they improved? I once again, Cruel Intentions walked in. I totally forgot Gossip Girl. So Gossip Girl could like sprint, because that's high end rich kids with problems.
Yeah, the thing, it also takes place in Manhattan. Kids who go to like a prep school. There's like this drama. Like people sleeping with each other and whatnot. But I don't know, it just flowed better. Even though a lot of CW shows have like very silly dialogue. I don't know, there was just something about it that was a little more inviting, maybe, so to speak. I feel like there's something a little isolating about Cruel Intentions, especially with the two leads, who think they're so smart. It's kind of off-putting
You just have
at times.
so many questions about it. You're just sitting there questioning the entire film.
That's the thing.
The reaction you have.
I feel like it's Gossip Girl can be charming at times from what I've seen, and this movie is not really charming despite like trying really hard to be, and that's probably one of its biggest misfires.
I hate it when things don't go my way. It makes me so horny.
hate it too.
Seems like things are looking up for you.
It appears so.
Any luck with your girl?
Moving along quite well.
Have you succeeded in your task?
Any day now.
If there's any other aspects of this movie, I feel like we've covered a lot of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Cruel Intentionites will be very happy with our analysis.
Will they? I feel like we kind of were like being very critical. So
I think they'll agree. I mean, I would love, hey, if to anyone out there, to our dividends, as our fans are called, to our fans,
as no one calls them.
although my
It's
mom
not a
says,
great
like,
name.
No, my
You might wanna
mom
work on
texted
it.
me saying like
Oh my
dividends.
God.
That's the name of a good fan
I think
base, and I'm
Dan
like, all right.
Dan Conroy came up with that name for us, and I thought it was really funny, and I like it, but it's also like ridiculous. The
That being
dividends.
said, if there's anyone out there who has my number, or look, if you really like this movie, non-ironically, I'm curious. You're allowed to have this as your one. You're allowed to like this movie. I'm just very curious as to why.
Well, okay.
Non-ironically, you can't go into this going it's stupid, and that's why I love it. I'm
I'll
just
say
very
this:
curious.
probably the best acting moment for me in this movie was when Sebastian like tries, or he breaks up with Reese Witherspoon, and he's like crying because he doesn't really want to do it. And I thought
Sobbing.
okay, like it maybe like that isolated scene by itself like kind of works. I'm buying. I liked it. I bought that, even
Okay.
though like again I don't really care about this character or his emotions, but I thought that was like a good maybe like a highlight performance for that actor in this movie. Like if he had one bright spot throughout the whole
Right.
movie, I would point to that scene.
Apparently, he threw up after that scene because he
Get
was.
out.
They were well. It's very emotionally draining, and
Oh,
him and
okay.
him and Reese were like dating.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really. We don't really see Ryan Phillippe in a lot of stuff. So I want to.
Not anymore, at least.
I guess this is his best performance. This is the performance he'll be.
Maybe. That one scene though, JJ, I have to say that I had a big problem with it because
Really?
and I want to know what you guys think if I like it or not. But that scene to me, they walk into her new bedroom. She says, "This is my bedroom. Do you think we can be quiet?" And the scene ends with her full on screaming at him to get out. So you're
Yes.
right. It is very emotionally heavy and it just is very emotionally driven. So, but I just had wasn't she just saying to be quiet? Like, why is she screaming?
Your
He's not
problem with it
killing
is
her.
that
Like,
Louise Fletcher it might wake Louise Fletcher.
Well, I did think like at one point she does towards the end of that scene scream like, "Don't touch me!
Don't
And,
touch
like,
me! Get
and
out!"
It sounds like a struggle, and it's like at that point I would think maybe a parent would come in like kind of concerned.
right. Somebody would be concerned if they heard her yelling like that. Somebody would come to but no parents ever intervene other than Bunny. Like,
Yeah. Well, maybe that kind of sums
The
it up
aunt.
where, this movie like, is focusing more on like the emotions and not really focusing on like, the logic behind, some of these
Anything.
like narrative choices.
Quick question,
Yes.
this is probably a good. This movie came out in 1999, as I said like a couple times. In addition to other movies that came out in 1999, like you had She's All That, Varsity Blues, 10 Things I Hate About You. What does this movie deserve a place in like the top 10 of this genre? Like where and maybe not in yours, but like if you were to make a an objective as possible list of top teen movies, does this
From the-
movie deserve a spot?
Well, if
Honorable
you're talking
mentions
about
as well.
if you're talking about just from the 90s or even the late, I would honestly say that late 90s teen movies were like
Yes.
very watchable, but maybe not the best of its kind. I mean, like,
Right.
She's All That is fun,
I'll
but it's
defend
also
that.
very, it's also
It's
very
stupid.
dumb.
it's
Yeah.
Very
dumb, but
misogynistic.
Yeah.
Very. It has lots of problems.
It's
oh
like
yeah,
ridiculous.
but they're all dancing at the end. Come on, they all know
So
how to
basically,
dance.
I mean, I would say like this movie is maybe emblematic of the teen movies that are coming out at the time
Sure.
that were easily lampooned. Where, like in '95, right before this era, you had like a great teen movie in Clueless, right?
Yeah.
And then like like 5 years later, you have like Mean Girls, which we discussed in an earlier episode. So
That is totally what I relate this to. Is like on a scale of 1 to Mean Girls, where does Cruel Intentions lie?
I think a lot of times when you talk about the best teen movies,
Right.
like you're talking about movies that are better than something like this, right? Like this is part of the pack, I would say, of like how dumb teen movies can be, and then you get movies like Clueless or Mean Girls that stand out above a movie
Yes.
like this.
Yeah.
But
So
I
this
guess
is kind of what you're comparing it to.
I agree with you, and I would just like I guess this movie kind of defied a little like when you hear Bittersweet Symphony, you think of this. But this movie has not the biggest staple in pop culture history, but it made its mark.
It made a splash at the time, and if
Erotic
anything,
teen drama, Cruel
it-
Intentions.
it got its famous moment, right? For
Yes.
better or for worse, it is a famous moment that, if it's the only thing that lasts or endures, then it's better than nothing, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally. I
Hey,
agree.
Not
You
a
know
ringing
what?
endorsement, but
Yeah, I know. Famous, infamously,
Just
people,
approving.
people are gonna know your name.
it endures, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
As student body president, I've tried to set an example in myself. Unfortunately, the one person I could not reach out to in time was my stepbrother Sebastian. I know he's looking down on us today, and I know he's looking down on us today, and he'd want me to say. He'd want me to say, Catherine. He'd want me to say, Catherine, I'm sorry. What is going on? Don't you people have any respect?
But I think maybe
Yeah.
we're at the point where we can give our own final like assessment and score on Cruel Intentions. So Mel, as our guest, start us off. What would be like your final thought and your ultimate percentage score for Cruel Intentions?
So, my personal view on this, I am actually a really big fan of 90s camp. And I think, I don't know why this movie comes to mind, but like The Parent Trap, very campy. And I like that movie for that reason. I think that Cruel Intentions for me is on that scale of like, oh, we're going for full camp here. Like, we're not shying away from anything. I actually really like this film. It bothers me so much. It's just like one of those love to be irked by it. I love to be like, I love questions, or not questions, movies that make me question what's happening. I kind of need that. Otherwise, it's just background noise. So I would say I agree with the audience. I would probably give it 75%.
Okay.
Cast, music, camp.
Okay. What do you think,
That's
Keith?
for me.
Thanks, Mel.
Mel,
Yeah.
with that, I can completely understand that opinion. I think you actually put it very well.
Thank you.
I don't want to discredit the guilty pleasureness of side, but then again, this as a movie. If this was, oh my God, this movie's stupid, and at times in the beginning it's kind of fun, stupid. You're along for the ride, and then it kind of overstays its welcome by the end enough that when the final scene came on, I was just like, okay, this is the famous scene. Can we just get this over with? I
Oh,
am gonna
yeah.
give it a 45.
Oh wow, a bit all over the board on this one.
Yeah. Divided AF, JJ.
Yeah, we
No
divided
pressure.
now. That's kind of the idea here on this podcast.
Hey.
She said it.
Cruel Intentions.
That's the name of our.
That's the name of the book.
We're gonna release
Cruel inventions.
We're gonna release a journal called Divided Films, and people are gonna shake their heads at us after they read it.
As Bittersweet Symphony
I
plays.
can see every one of our guests singing Bittersweet Symphony.
Sorry,
change,
we're all-
change.
I can see all of our guests, all of our past guests, just shaking their heads.
At this episode. So, yeah, mixed feelings from me because I think it is like watchable, and I guess if you go into it like maybe with a glass of wine, ready to just kind of like enjoy the absurdity of it all, I could see the value in that. I just question how much of that is intentional. I feel like what they set out to do was to make like maybe like an I don't know, I want to say like an Oscar bait kind of thing, but they definitely wanted to make something that would be like respected more than it is, and something that like would be considered deep, but it's not. So, the watchability factor probably saves it because it's just so ridiculous. But I'll probably give it. I have to give this like a 58, basically.
Okay. I knew you were gonna say like 60. I had a feeling.
I can't give it the fresh. I just really can't.
That's fine.
It's nearing it. Like it just. It's trying really hard. It's almost trying a little too hard. That you can tell. So, what would be our final score here, Keith?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Are we doing math? Is that?
Yeah, I do.
The cruelest intention of all, math.
And the
cruelest invention
of all,
Yes.
on a cell phone. I just want to preamble that I usually, even though it may not be my score, the ultimate score for what we give these movies, I usually end up agreeing with. I think it's right. This movie comes out to a 59.3.
Oh, that is our closest yet
That is
to the fresh
cusp.
score.
Oh, but it's still rotten. It's still rotten.
Whoa!
It's on
man.
the cusp. It doesn't even round up to a 60.
I am so honored right now, you guys.
Oh, wow.
Thank
That's
you.
a nail biter.
And I kind of
That's wow.
I'll agree with that. I think there's enough people to. I think the 81% speaks for itself. That enough people do. I think a lot of people see it your way, Mel. So,
I'll say this movie has this
Love to hate
distinction. Of all the movies we've gotten rotten scores, it has the highest.
it's a good fail. It's a good 59.
Yes.
F+.
I'm happy with it. I'm definitely happy with that. I could stand by that.
All right, so it's official. For Cruel Intentions, we are officially siding with the critics.
Sign language applause, waving my hands.
So we'll put that in the captions, but that doesn't work on podcasts. So thanks, Mel, for joining us for this
Thank
podcast.
you guys.
It's been a
Thanks
pleasure
for
having you
having
on.
This
and
was fun.
Yeah, definitely,
anytime.
Definitely would love to have you back again. We have
Cruel
plenty
Intentions 2
Cruel
Good.
Inventions.
with Amy
The
Adams.
sequel.
crueler
Oh my God.
intentions, maybe.
Straight to DVD, so maybe not.
Okay,
You never
those
know.
don't count. But thanks, Mel, and everyone out there, please join us again another time for another Divided Film. All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks all. Bye.